Today I want to talk about a movie that is one of my favorite movies, but it's my favorite movies that you only have watched once in your life. So today I want to talk about 12 Monkeys. 12 Monkeys is one of these great movies where I'm really confused in the last third part of the movie. I was very confused until the very end. And after the very end, I'm kind of relieved and happy it's over, and I feel like I have learned something. There was a similar feeling I had with this one movie that is very great from David Fincher, and it's called Fight Club. Because up till the very end, there's something you feel is off. Something doesn't feel right. There are some explanations for some parts, but there's some unreasonable difference in between what the character sees and what the character feels and what is happening to him, and it feels like there's a missing part of information. And 12 Monkeys plays with this a lot. And 12 Monkeys even does more than just playing it with it. 12 Monkeys tries to make you feel that there's something wrong, and it is with the perspective of the protagonist. 12 Monkeys tries to make you believe this is maybe just an illusion in the head of our protagonist. And I think this is one of the really strong aspects that 12 Monkeys has. It makes the unreliable narrator the protagonist, and it makes the protagonist not he's doubting himself, and you start to doubt him and the movie and how the movie is explaining the story, but it makes it in a way that you still believe there's a possibility that this is not just in his head. This little game of incohesive information, and at the same time this kind of, okay, it would make sense, it is hard to believe, but it could be true. And so you start asking yourself the question while you watch this movie is if what you see is reality or if it's just a perspective. And this is kind of a weird way, because all reality for me is a sort of perspective. There is a reality that we have in common, us as humans, and we try to believe in an objective reality where the desk is at this place and the sun every time at 6 a.m. It depends on the seasons or whatever, but at a certain point I can predict that the sun will be there. And these tryings for objective reality is what we try to create. We try to see the world in patterns that we analyzed, and these kind of patterns we try to use, because if we can create a pattern, somebody else can use this pattern and come to the same conclusion. And this is kind of how I see science. You see a pattern, you write it down, somebody else sees it, things like you can even put some other information on the model, on the pattern, and therefore add something to make it more accurate, the pattern, for what in reality will happen. So we have pattern or model, and we have reality, and the idea is there is a reality that is maybe never be reconstructed by the model, but we can come closer and closer to reality. What is interesting here is that we are not sure if the protagonist has enough sanity to know what is reality, and therefore we cannot use the pattern, or let's say the movie in this form is like the pattern for us to understand the reality of somebody else. if this is actually good information, if this is reliable, if this is like, somebody who has like an extreme trauma, a social trauma, may not see the like certain symptoms, certain form of how he's treated as like in a regular way. He's not seeing the extent of how he's treated in a good way. Somebody who has like a psychosis, he cannot see the standard symptoms of certain treatments, like certain treatments of other people, as like what they are, or what a normal human being would make out of them. And normal in this case is not how you're supposed to be, but like, what if we put all humans together and we pick like the most average out of them? That is for me how I define normal in this case. So the most average is normal, and then the most like out away from, like, the person was the most away from the average is the abnormal. And obviously if you have a certain form of psychosis, there would be like a way of abnormal reception of certain information. And this is kind of how we see the movie, and we are asking ourselves if this person has such an abnormal reception of information. And it made me curious, and this movie is like kind of showing you that they have a solution for this, and I will not spoil it, but it made me curious about perspective taking. So I can take the perspective of a person of whom I understand the form of pattern he or she uses. So if somebody explains to me his emotion or his experience, I can then kind of replicate this in my head and understand why a certain person thinks like that, like on an intellectual level. And emotionally it's a little bit different. Often like emotions I don't understand, and sometimes it's very good that if somebody's just emotional about something, I can feel it. I cannot feel the situation, but I can feel the impact of that for this person, and therefore I feel an emotion for this person. So if somebody is crying, and am attached to this person, I feel the same feeling. Same goes for love or for anger, but like anger is, I think, a very specific thing. But in general I talk about sympathy, so like the idea of that you can feel the same thing that somebody else feels in a certain moment. And the question here is, I can feel sympathy with the protagonist, but I'm not able to like totally accept what I'm seeing there, because I think like this pattern that I see there make more sense for him not having like mental sanity. And this kind of play is very strong for me. If a movie can create this kind of distinguished feelings, this kind of also very different feelings about the protagonist, you feel he's losing his sanity, but at the same time you feel like this person has so much sympathy. I have so much sympathy for this character. And obviously this is a way how horror movies can work, but in this case it's really, really something special, because I don't know, I feel like the director, the author, or whoever who made this movie had the same idea about like reality. If like maybe you also like, or I also don't see what reality is really about, and we are just like living in a simulation. And there's no, like, as I said, there's a concrete answer at the end, but I don't feel like this is imposed on you. If you feel like this movie is telling you something else, you should go with that. And that is a really strong movie for me. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to create this episode because I wrote something down. I wrote down memories of my childhood and of different experiences I had in my life. And I came to the conclusion that certain points in my life are very important and certain different points were not very important. Certain points were very present in my conscious life. Like, I remember them, I tell stories about them, and I'm doing a lot of stuff that is bounded to this experience, and other experiences, like years of my life, of whom I have no interesting memories, no memories I recollect as important for myself. And so I wanted to talk about this kind of anxiety I got from, okay, there's an unconscious part of myself that I cannot control that is weighting my experiences. Even these 2 years have not been unimportant on my conscious level, but on my unconscious level, they're not existing anymore. I have to really hardly concentrate to remember stuff of these years, and I have really hard to concentrate of seeing their importance. And that's really crazy, because when I did the work, I found important memories of these years, but I had to work on it. And this made me wanted to think about reality again, and about okay, maybe we have this kind of difficulty to see reality, and it makes us having even more difficulties to understand other people if there's not clear what we understand about ourselves, how we weight information and memories for our unconscious and conscious level. I don't know. I think it was very fascinating to think again about 12 Monkeys and how the unreliable narrator is kind of making us realize that the information we have, the information we take in, the information we give out are I don't know, maybe unreliable. Yeah, I think that was a little bit deeper than usually, and a little bit more, I don't know, more based on how I see certain things as a perspective on screenwriting. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope we see each other next time. Bye.